4 years ago, I hired my first employee from Colombia, and since then I've built a $3.5 million marketing agency and have hired 76% of my team from countries like Colombia. And in this video, I'm going to be giving away my entire offshore talent playbook and showing you exactly how you can hire talent from countries like Colombia, Brazil, from countries in Eastern Europe like Serbia, from countries like South Africa, and even countries in Southeast Asia like the Philippines. And I'm going to be going through every single step in this video, jam-packed full of value so you can apply everything to your own business. Let's get into it. So some very quick background before we dive in. My name is Jordan Hayes. I have built my company Hayes Media, which is a marketing agency, and we've done over $3.5 million of lifetime revenue. And what we do is we help e-commerce brands scale. So we're a marketing agency. We deliver done-for-you services to other companies. They pay us to do services for them. And as I mentioned, 76% of my team is remote offshore. We are actually all remote, so it's 100% remote, but 76% of them are what you would say in offshore countries or nearshore countries. So countries like Colombia, we have most of our team in Colombia. We have people in Brazil. We have people in the Philippines. And in the past, we've hired from South Africa, we've hired from Serbia, we've hired from Slovenia, we've hired from Indonesia, we've hired from many different places. Actually, specifically, I've hired 56 people from these different countries. So I have a lot of experience in terms of what works, what doesn't work. And what that means is you can actually trust what I'm going to be saying in this video, because the lessons that I've learned have actually cost me tens of thousands of dollars and just many, many years figuring this out. But once you figure it out, you basically get US quality talent for half the price, right? But it is kind of like a needle in a haystack that we have to find. And that is why I've put this video together to help you out, okay? So run Hayes Media, and I'm also actually building Yander, which is basically taking what I'm gonna tell you in today's video, and we actually built a software around it. So if you just don't want to do this yourself and you want offshore talent now, then you basically just tell it what you want. It's the world's first fully autonomous AI recruitment agent, and you tell it what you want, and it's gonna give you candidates pretty much right away, okay? And it's actually going to culture fit them to what it knows about your company. So that's pretty cool. You can go to yander.io. The link's also down below, and check it out, okay? So let's get straight into it. The first thing that I want to go through is, where should you hire from? Because if you're watching this video, you already know the advantages of hiring from these regions, right? Like Colombia, like Brazil. Maybe you've even tried it in the past, but maybe you didn't get someone who was the right fit. Maybe someone wasn't reliable, and maybe you have never tried it before and you want to try it. So the first thing that I would say is that you want to have a lot of crossover in terms of your time zones. So if you're based in the US, the best bet is to hire from South America, right? Hire from countries like Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, because the time zones are basically the same, right? Especially if you're on Eastern. If you're Pacific, you're a few hours behind, but you don't have to worry about that, okay? If you're in UK and Europe, then South Africa is great. Eastern Europe is great. Even Southeast Asia is great. And a lot of people in Southeast Asia, they've changed their working hours to match European time zones or even US time zones. So just because you're in the US doesn't mean that you can't hire from these regions or shouldn't. It just means that you might have less crossover with the time zones as you would if someone was based in South America. Okay, South Africa is also a great option if you're in the US, because I think maybe 6 hours ahead of Eastern, like I think it's something like that. So it's not completely bad. And then if you don't need like full crossover, like 8 hours a day with that person, then it can work. All right. So that would be the first thing, just to understand like where you actually want to hire from, because that's going to really help you drill down and help you with your search. Okay. Now, what I've found is that some regions are better to hire specific roles in. For example, Brazil is a great country for media buyers, people who are very analytical, even software engineers. There's a lot of emerging software engineer talent that's coming out of Brazil. Data engineers, people who require an analytical brain, right? Now, not to say that people who aren't in those fields from Brazil aren't great hires. I've also found great creative talent in Brazil, creative strategists, video editors, graphic designers. We've had them on our team. We have active people from Brazil on our team right now. We also have people in Brazil who are very analytical. Okay. And what I've found is that you do get a mix of talent in all these regions, but sometimes we go somewhere, if like we want a media buyer or performance marketer, Brazil has been our best bet. Okay. I'll give you another example. Colombia is great for account managers, creative directors, video editors, people like project managers, customer success roles, operations, also graphic design and video editing. Most of our editing team is in Colombia. Right, they do the graphics, the video editing. We also have a creative director in Colombia. We have basically someone who leads our whole business on the ads department side that we deliver to our clients in Colombia. He was my first hire in that region. So again, you can pretty much find any sort of talent in any of these regions, but certain areas are better for specific roles, right? In Colombia, I haven't really found a great source of software engineering talent. It doesn't mean that those guys aren't there. But again, it's more like what sort of chances do you have of finding the right people, okay? Argentina is great for software developers, UI, UX designers, data analysts. South Africa, great for copywriters, content strategists, SEO specialists, community managers. Again, like I haven't really seen strong dev talent in South Africa. That's just from what I've seen. Serbia and Eastern Europe, software engineers, web developers, QA, very technical minded, right? Very, very good at that stuff. You will also find very good SEO strategists, very good community managers, people who could also be very good account managers in Serbia, in Slovenia, in Ukraine. Ukraine's also great dev talent, but also there's a really diverse range of creative talent in the Ukraine as well. So yeah, again, you will find pretty much anyone in these countries, but this is just what I've seen. Some quick reference table right here. And by the way, guys, if you want this whole guide, you want to go through it in your own time, I'll link it down below so you can access it, okay? So let's move on to the next stage, which is how do you actually find these people, right? Because knowing who you want is one thing, but then going to the right place to see where do these people actually spend their time is another thing, right? So I think one thing that covers everyone in every region is LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is going to be the place where you're going to find these people more often than not. Now, if you are hiring specific talent like software engineers, web developers, people who you need to be building out within software, then I would go to places like Wellfound, arc.dev. I think there's also one called gun.io. Those places, you're going to be able to find specific dev talent, and that's where they're going to congregate. A few years ago, if you wanted to hire media buyers, you would go to Facebook groups, right? I don't know if that's still active, but we hired in Facebook groups years and years ago. Now we mainly focus on LinkedIn. Also, creative work, Contra.com is great. Upwork is also great. I've had a lot of success on Upwork actually for creative roles. People in copywriting, strategists. We have people on our team that we hired through Upwork, and then we basically took them from freelancer to full-time. But LinkedIn has been like the number one go-to, and it's also where I've hired a lot of great people from. So on LinkedIn, you can do manual searches, right? You can literally just search, I want a media buyer Brazil, and then you just go through the applicants, and you can just filter for people who are currently employed. This is just because what I've found is that someone who is actually good they're always in a role, or if they're out of a role, they're not out of a role for long, right? Usually they get snapped up quite quick. So that's just something that I found. You can also look at their profile for a proof of work, maybe some recommendations on the profile. If you're looking for someone in design and graphic work or even video editing, usually they'll have a portfolio link to the Behance or something like that where you can actually go and see the quality of their work before reaching out. And then what I do is I just send a direct specific message, something like, hey, we're hiring for this role, and this is a little bit of background on the role, it's remote, full-time, whatever, and would you be interested, right? And actually have, if you download this talent playbook, I have LinkedIn outreach templates. I have 3 different templates with examples that you can actually just plug and play. So you can use some of those, and the response rate with these templated messages is very, very high. I would say you could probably get about anywhere between a 5 and 15% response rate. Honestly, maybe even higher, depending on the role, right? And depending on how much proof and social proof and trust you build with your own profile, just to make sure that you look legit and that the company and the job offer looks exciting. You're just going to get more responses, okay? So make sure you actually have your own profile built out as you start reaching out to these people. So that is LinkedIn. Now, method 2 is referrals from your existing team. Of course, if you don't have anyone from these regions, then this may not be the best route. So I'll move on to the next one. Communities and groups, as I mentioned, Slack groups, Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, harder to find, but if you can find them, then it can be gold, right? Method 4 is run ads on Meta. So throw up some simple ads on Meta, create a video of yourself. This is what I've done, create a video of myself, professionally shot in a podcast studio, but it doesn't have to be professional. It can be on your phone. Hey, we're hiring for this role. More information about our company. This is how to apply. And we send people to a job form, and we got like crazy cheap signups, like 27 cents per application or something like that. And not all of those were qualified, but we were able to actually hire from that, right? We had hundreds and hundreds of applicants just after we spent less than $100, and we were able to actually make a very good hire who's still in our team today. So that's just, another method that actually works extremely well, and you don't need a big budget to do it. What not to do is don't use Fiverr. I just never found success there. Don't hire the first person who applies, and never skip the paid trial. I'm gonna circle back to this later on in the video. It's extremely important. Now, as I mentioned, another way to actually find the A players, you could just use Yander. Yander is gonna be probably about the same cost as you'll spend on LinkedIn jobs combined with your Meta ad spend. You probably spend the same on Yander, and we can just give you that with the one person that you need to hire straight away. So yeah, check it out if you're interested. Cool. So the vetting system, this is probably one of the most important parts of this video, because just because you get access to many different candidates, if you have 100 candidates, the vetting system is going to decide whether you actually make a good hiring decision. So I have a 5-stage filtering system. The first is application screen. Okay. Now, before any interview, all candidates complete an application form so I can screen for their direct experience, right? We want, ideally, especially if it's like a mid to senior role and it's not a junior role, we want experience. We want direct experience. If we're hiring from my agency, I want to know, have you done this exact thing in a different company, in a different agency? And that will just give me a stronger sense that you're actually going to be able to come in and deliver on our expectations. The next thing is English proficiency. This is so important, especially within an agency, but honestly within any company, because if you need someone to communicate internally quite effectively, they need to have very good spoken and written English. Now, depending on the country that you're hiring from, I've found that Colombia, Argentina is best for the English level. Brazil, it's a mixed bag. Eastern Europe is very good for English. South Africa is amazing for English because it's basically one of the first languages that they speak. Southeast Asia also pretty good for English. Indonesia is a mixed bag, but Philippines, I would say, is overall pretty good. India is also a mixed bag, but you can find a lot of people with very good English in that region as well. So in terms of actually qualifying this, something that I've done is I just asked for a quick 2-minute Loom video, which allows me to hear it for myself, right? Because anyone can say, I can speak English, my English is perfect, but the proof is in the pudding, right? Like, let me actually see for myself. And rather than getting on the interview and then being like, this person doesn't actually speak good English, and then having to waste both of our time, I would rather just see it up front, okay? So 2-minute Loom video, or you can also ask for the certificates. You know, if someone has a B1 or a C1 or whatever, there's like a grading system for the English that's based on an exam that they complete. But yeah, probably not required when you're hiring from South Africa, but you might still want to include that as part of your process. The next thing that I ask for in the application process is examples of case studies, portfolio of their work. Basically, have you done this before? And if so, share details, right? What were the details? And for manager executive roles, I like to ask what's the hardest challenge you faced in your professional life and how did you overcome it? This will give you a pretty good insight into kind of what this person has dealt with before. And that will just give you a good pulse on whether this person can actually come in and do what you are expecting them to do. Okay, so the filter we're looking for here is we're only looking for direct experience and proficiency in English. If there's a match to a scorecard, we move to the next step. All right. Step 2, or stage 2, is the first interview. This is usually up to 60 minutes long. If the person is a very good fit, it can go a little bit longer. If the person is not a good fit, we like to cut the interview short. So here, I won't go through all these steps in detail, but essentially we split it out into 4 areas. First of all, we talk about their background and experience. We ask them questions to understand their background and experience. Step 2 is technical depth. We ask them questions to understand the depth of their knowledge, their technical ability. Step 3, company and role overview. This is us giving them information about our company and also telling them more about the role. We are selling them on the dream. We want them to get excited about working for us because it's going to make it easier to come to a decision and an agreement with them if we want to hire them. And then step 4 is just to align on the details and next steps so that they know what to expect next and that you also make sure that you're aligned on things like the compensation and just to make sure that you can meet their expectations if you proceed into the next steps of this hiring process. And as I mentioned, you can download this complete playbook down below for free, and you can go through this in your own time as well. If I was to go through every single step in this video, we'll be here for a while, okay? Stage 3, a paid test project. So this is actually when someone goes past the interview stage, they move into a paid test, okay? In the past, we've actually done free tests. It depends how long the test actually takes, and it also depends, I guess, the role that you're hiring for. Usually, people who are the real deal, they want to be paid for their time because otherwise they think that, well, I'm not going to waste 3 hours of my time on doing this when I may not even get the job, okay? So you might want to just pay them fairly for it, even if it's just for a few hours of their time. So I have some examples of tasks here, but essentially the reason for this is just to evaluate quality of output, can they actually do the job. How they communicate during the project is also very important. Do they meet the deadline is crucial, and how do they handle feedback on their first draft? Okay? If they pass that test, and basically we score candidates out of 10 in each area, then we go to the second interview. And this is when we actually bring in somebody else from our company, a colleague, another manager, depends on how big your company is. And this is just to get a second opinion. Usually you want someone on this call who's going to be working with this person, someone who's going to be their direct report, so someone that this person is going to be working under, and you want them to take that interview, because you want to get that second opinion. And then this is slightly different interview from the first one. And it's more about asking them questions about the test project that they completed, clarifications on their background and experience. You want to ask for references. And you also want to understand the candidate's ideal growth path. You shift from understanding the candidate's past to understanding the present and what they want in their future. Okay. Stage 5, the final one, is when you make a decision on who to hire, we always start with a trial period. This can be 1 to 2 months depending on the role. And this is because we never want to go straight from just talking on interviews and test projects to actually getting them in full time. We always put them through a part-time trial. This depends on how much time they have available alongside their existing role. And it also allows us to make sure that, are they a good fit for our company culture, right? Can they actually deliver to our standards? And we give them enough time to be able to do that, okay? A lot of times we've been so sure on someone, we brought them in on a paid trial period and they just haven't performed. Like, it just wasn't it, or it was a very bad culture fit. We saved ourselves a lot of time, we saved ourselves a lot of money, and ultimately we also saved the candidate a lot of time and money as well, because they didn't have to move from their current job to our role to only for us to fire them 1 month later. This to me is a non-negotiable, and that's why I have it here as stage 5. Okay, so that is the vetting system. The onboarding process is very, very important as well. I'm not going to go through this. Again, you can access this whole document down below, but we have a full onboarding process for, to sets us up for success with the new hire. I have some expensive mistakes that I want to go through just so that you also don't run into these mistakes, okay? First thing, mistake number 1 is skipping the trial period. Never skip the trial period, okay? If you like the candidate so much and you hire them into a full-time role, trust me, business owners at the highest level still make wrong hiring decisions. These are designed, we put these guidelines and filtering systems in place so that we are more likely to make a correct hiring decision, so that we don't have to fire that person 1 month, 2 months, 3 months later, okay? But even with that, we still make wrong hiring decisions. So you never want to skip the trial period, because that is a trial period. It is designed to trial that person out to make sure that they're the right fit for your company. Mistake number 2 is not vetting English proficiency on video. Trust me, you do not want to take 100 interviews. You shouldn't be taking tons and tons of interviews. You should be pre-qualifying your candidates, then taking interviews with the qualified candidates that you feel really good about, okay? Usually for a role, we're not taking anywhere more than 20 interviews. And sometimes, as we've got more experienced, we take between 5 and 10 interviews with the people that are the most, like the best fit, and then we make a decision on there, okay? Mistake number 3 is ignoring the time zone overlap. So I've made this mistake myself, where basically we had people in Southeast Asia, even in Australia, and then we also had people in Colombia. They're almost a day apart in terms of like their work hours. So things would just move extremely slowly. So you want to try and have as many people in the same region as possible. It just is so much more efficient, okay? So for example, let's just say you had some of your team in South America and some of your team in Eastern Europe. Let's just say the Eastern Europe team does their 8 hours, 9 hours a day. Halfway through that, the Colombian team comes online. And as the Eastern Europe team is going to bed, the South American team is also working on the same project to push it forward. And then you get this like kind of overlap, and you're basically putting more than like 8 or 9 hours into the project that just the same team in the same region would put in. So that's like an advantage, and it allows you to move faster on some projects, but you're going to lose some of the time zone overlap there as well, okay? Mistake number 4 is not having a communication standard. So this is especially important because when you're bringing in people from a lot of different backgrounds and cultures, you want to have very strict and clear standards in your company for communication, but also for other things, okay? Because you're getting a lot of advantages from these different cultural backgrounds, but also inherently the culture is different, okay? So there's going to be different tendencies. But if everyone can align to a specific baseline that you set, then you're just going to have a lot more success in hiring from different regions, okay? And mistake number 5 is the 2-month trial period before client facing. This is specifically for marketing agencies or any sort of B2B service where you are client facing and you're hiring client facing roles. Let's just say, for example, you have an account manager who's going to be talking to clients. The mistake that I've seen so many people make, and even myself, is you bring that person on and you introduce them to the client straight away, or even a week or 2 after they join. Hey, here's a new account manager, things are great, etc., etc. 1 month in, you realize that person's not a right fit and you need to get rid of them. Now you need to tell the client, by the way, we had to let this guy go and here's a new person. that just creates a lot of instability in the client's eyes, and it's just not good for a client and agency relationship, okay? So that's just one thing I've learned. That's cost us many clients over the years and a lot of money, okay? So a few more things before we wrap up. We have the salary benchmarks by role and region for 2026, and you can come and see this in your own time, but this is basically how much you should be paying, right? We also have a calculator to see basically how much you would pay compared to the US, and I'll also link that calculator down below. But essentially, you can see for the role type for the different regions, right? We have Eastern Europe and South Africa here, we have South America here. This is like a rough range of what you should be paying. And this is not like this is not the country average. This is like, you want to pay a little bit above market rate because you're just going to keep them at your company longer and they're going to be so motivated, and you're still cutting the salary in half of what you would pay in your own country, like the US, UK, okay? So a lot of good data here. And yeah, this is like a mix of what's available online, but also what I've learned firsthand from hiring from all these regions. Some other useful resources in here is a candidate vetting scorecard. This is just going to allow you to keep score and keep tabs on the people that you're interviewing and putting through your application process so you make the right decision. We also have a red flag checklist. So if any red flag pops up, do not proceed. Do not proceed regardless of the score. Onboarding checklist. This is also important just to make sure that you onboard and ramp up new hires effectively. And then the LinkedIn outreach templates, as I mentioned. Okay, so this is the remote offshore talent playbook. I'd recommend downloading this, as I mentioned, link down below. And if you want to make this process so much easier on yourself, on your team that's hiring, head to yando.io, join the waitlist. At the time of recording this, we are on waitlist. Maybe by the time you get to this page, we have launched. But essentially, you tell it who you want to hire. Executive assistant in South Africa. I want to hire a senior media buyer in South America. And it will give you the people that have been pre-vetted, that are culture fit to your company. And then you can just take the interviews and take it from there, right? You save a lot of time, you save a lot of money, you get access, because a lot of times companies, they want to hire, but they don't have access, right? Because they don't have the credibility online or something like that, okay? Or they don't have the experience hiring in these regions. We do, and we built a whole product around this. So you can come to yando.io, you can learn more about what we do, and yeah, you can try it out. It's a platform, so anyone in your team can use it. We're not a recruitment agency. We don't charge recruitment fees, and no 20% of salary placement fees, nothing like that. It's just a software that you pay for monthly, and you can use it whenever you're hiring, okay? That's it from me, and I'll see you in the next video.